I'd like to call our board meeting to order. Note that four of us are here and Debbie Ramirez is not. We have comments from the public regarding items on the closed session agenda. Benjamin McKnight, can you go up there and please state your name so they can hear it at home? I know, but you need to do it again for the record. Thank you.
Hello. Oh, okay. So, members of the school board, I have hope for the future. Although many AP classes have been interrupted, many students have been left without grades for months, and about 100 students will be struggling to make sense of the plans in place to teach them for the rest of the year, I think that it is important for me to put my faith in you all, okay? So, although you may have all decided to go against the mission of providing high quality education with student achievement as your top priority right now, perhaps this is in fact for the better, contrary to how it would seem from the perspective of the uneducated student who is not legally allowed to know what is going on. It seems that we have no choice but to accept that this is beyond our control. Now, I don't believe that any of you are bad people. I am sure that you are all trying your very best. I am sure that none of you would ever want to put anyone in this situation. I am sure that none of you would ever want anyone to feel uncomfortable with you or your actions. And I am sure that most of all, none of you would ever want people to leave because they felt uncomfortable working with you. As time goes on, I have noticed that this school has been both intentionally and unintentionally shifting away from student academic achievement and college, and is instead moving towards preparing students to find jobs after college or go to a trade school. While I may be a bit biased on this subject, I think that this shift has come at a cost to the academic achievement focused students. We have lost many important staff members who have helped to prepare us for college. At the same time, plans are in place to work on a maker lab at both campuses. While I think that this shift is, while I am not against this shift entirely, I think that it is important not to ignore the strong academic students and what drew them to this school in the first place. And I am, of course, one of those people. I hope that going forward, the school board can work on conducting its business in ways that are more respectful towards students and student achievement. I hope that going forward, this school can hold on to more of the teachers who make it so great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Kara McKnight.
Kira McKnight, you may remember me from last month. During this 9-week interim, the district and Annaly's administration have heard countless times about the inadequate instruction and assignments the students of the 5 different class periods have received. The message from all the communication of those I've spoken with, including Mr. Wade, vice principals, Mr. Meredith, board members, Ms. Sanduina, and Mr. Black, who's my current AP Lang sub, is that you can say and do very little due to legal constraints and processes. Still, you understand how difficult this is for students. That may be true, but I have learned the hard way in this district that you can't blindly trust a school or district administrator's words. Students in my position must rely only on their actions to shape how you view them and their ability to respond to and serve students. That brings me to the actions of this board, the district, the Annaly administration, and the Annaly administration in this particularly egregious case. It is your job to know how the firing of senior tenured teachers works. You're the ones that do it. You're well aware of the legal process and the due process and the legal rights they maintain, along with the subsequent delays involved with their opportunities for legal defense. You should also know who Ms. Maxon is as an educator within her decades-long commitment to this school and her students. Anyone who knows Ms. Maxon, which in a well-connected school district would include the board, the superintendent, and the principal, would know that she would use all the options at her disposal to fight the loss of her career, including personal lawyers and delay. Those in charge of the situation knew that and moved forward with the investigation and the removal of her from her position anyway. You were in full knowledge of the negative consequences for students. Your actions say this: removing Miss Maxon was more important to you than ongoing student harm during her presence. My demand to the board is simple. That sentence should be your message to students when they ask you about Miss Maxon's removal, because that is what your actions show. Be as honest about your reasoning as you can be under the law, and face the reputational consequences and the student anger that are the result of your decisions. If any of you have a good faith rebuttal to what I've laid out tonight, contact me via email. If any of you are interested in speaking directly to the school community through an interview with the student newspaper to address the far-reaching effects of your decisions on students, contact the faculty editor, John Greck.
Thank you. And we can recess to close session.
Creating teams and forming game plans. Don was 90 years old. In retirement, Don and his wife, Margie, lived part of their time in Palm Springs and other time in Tahoe. Never had a chance to meet Don, but it sounds like he left a lasting legacy on our school community. So I wanted to share that sad news with the community and honor all the great work that Don did here in West County. About rescheduling a meeting and doing it in combined fashion with those three districts respectively after the new year. The next advisory meeting will be held at Monte Rio on December 19th. It's next Thursday at 5:30 p.m. and will engage ed partners from Monte Rio, Fort Ross, Montgomery, and Harmony districts. So much like we did with Gravenstein, we will have our Community Schools Advisory Committee, and we'll be joined by educational partners from those respective districts. So we're really looking forward to continuing that work. Monday and Tuesday, well, Sunday through Tuesday, I was out in San Francisco downtown at the National Superintendent's Forum, hosted by RTM. I was honored to be selected to present on creative bargaining and the great work that we did with our labor partners this past year with regard to restructuring the salary schedule and just looking at negotiations from a different lens. I was joined by superintendents from all over the nation. It was really interesting to learn about how district operations occur in different states. It sounds like they found me through the article that was posted in AXA's EdCal magazine, which was originally written for Dale Doherty. So I was surprised and honored when they reached out over the summer, and boy, it came quickly, and it was difficult to be away from my girls, but it was a great opportunity for me to share our work with other superintendents, and I essentially went through the slides that I presented to WSCTA. I talked about the fact that we engaged in ongoing conversations, developing that relationship, really learning what the interests of our labor partners are, how we leaned into those interests, and then working together with both my team and our labor partners, looking at how we could apply district dollars in a more creative way, and most importantly, maximize our salary schedule for our employees. So it was a great experience, and I just wanted to share that with the board and the community. And last but not least, Debbie, I have a few words to say, and we too didn't always agree on things, but we really appreciate your service to the community, serving as the vice president and trustee for the past 2 years. I noticed you were extremely active in the school community and passionate about your work. I appreciate your contributions to our LCAP Ed partner teams, during the course of those 6 meetings. Your attention to policy, ton of respect for that, compliance, and your passion for equity, and how you've prioritized and encouraged all of us to always engage as much as possible with the community and the importance of transparency within the school and greater community. You've also attended many school events, classroom visits, and were at, I think, every single PD day that we've offered. So I just want to thank you for your service, and you will be missed. And I do have the crystal diamond here to honor your service, and I would like to present that to you and just acknowledge that.
All right, awesome. So we're moving on to education services. The first item is the California Community School Partnership Program update.
Yeah, this is not an action item, so I'll go ahead and begin. I think I might have set a Guinness Book of World Records for words in a board item.
And attachments.
And attachments. But my intent behind that was to some of the things I spoke with regards to Debbie and just how we've all, both our board, our administrators, our school community, prioritizing community engagement and transparency. So with this item, I really wanted to capture the story behind the work that's been happening for 2.5 years since we studied enrollment, post-consolidation. You all know I inherited the district and I wasn't necessarily a part of that. But going back to even my second interview with the board, I was asked, well, Chris, what would you do on the former El Molino campus? So in that conversation, I can remember clearly talking about districts that I've noticed that have done things not from a non-traditional focus and looking at how we can really maximize school facilities and programs to meet the interest of all students. So obviously I had a lot of learning to do in terms of the history of that. I really like to analyze our obviously our budget, which is directly related to our enrollments. And as you are all aware, the district has experienced steady declining enrollment for resident students. Thanks to the great reputation of Annalay High School, we've seen an increase in overall enrollments, but many of those students are interdistrict transfers who are leaving their neighboring schools for the amazing programs that we have. In studying those enrollment trends, as noted in the board item, and as I've said here many, many times, we saw and noticed that students in an ongoing manner continue to leave the district, even though not in large numbers, for innovative, non-traditional high school programs. And that's all been communicated to you in our yearly enrollment reports and the ongoing communication that I've had. Pretty much everything that you see written here has been stated in open session board meetings. So I wanted to demonstrate all of the work that we've done to really engage the community and capture that kind of historical context. We have to serve all students. We have to prioritize our in-district students first. And since the pandemic, and I noticed this as a high school principal, the interests of students have evolved. There are always going to be students interested in the traditional model. Big programs, a lot of options, but there are more students interested in something different. And that's why the board gave me authorization to start exploring a different model and how we could maximize the use of that campus and program offerings back in 2022. Since then, as captured here, and I'm not going to go through and summarize all that for you because and for those here in the public, I encourage you to take a look at that item and those attachments if you're curious. We've done a lot of work. We engaged with that initial design team throughout the spring semester of my first year. That initial team consisted of teachers, former employees, people that worked at the county office, parents of former El Molino students. And then that evolved as we learned about the community schools initiative in the state of California. That gave us more clarity as to the path to building something meaningful that could support students who are interested in a different model. We've engaged in many conversations, many different educational partner meetings. The board has seen several presentations, both from myself, but also from Laura Schmidt and Sheila Richmond regarding the CCSPP process. We were awarded, thank goodness, $200,000 with the planning grant. We hired Sheila Richmond. She's done an amazing job. She's been a tremendous asset to our district in terms of helping to move this process along, but most importantly, further develop the wellness program and the MTSS processes that Laura and her team and many staff have worked really hard to do in terms of providing that type of support system. Most recently, you all know I've held the information sessions, which really were an overview of district facilities, district goals, potential for new program, but an opportunity for me to further work with the community and be transparent about our goals of bringing these two divided communities together. And those of you who attended, we heard that pain is there. And I know that loss of El Molino was very, very difficult. So the intention of that meeting was twofold, really, to be at the forefront, answer questions, be up there on stage and take some harsh critics, but to tell people, hey, what we've been working on, and that we really care about that campus and we care about all of our students, and we have to look at things differently in this day and age, right? The Community Schools Advisory Committee meeting that we held at Guerneville was awesome. Dan facilitated a great educational partner engagement activity, which really focused on the 4 pillars of a community school. We're going to continue that work, as I stated in my SUPS report, next week. You all know I was also agendized at Monte Rio. I've received some great feedback regarding the district's vision to potentially create a new program on that campus. I'm committed to continuing to listen, to build an informed vision. I think one thing that was extremely refreshing, and we all walked away very proud, was we captured the notes from the educational partner engagement, and that's in the attachments. And while we thought we had a pretty good idea of what could be built that would serve students in a different way, we heard a lot of that same feedback coming from those ed partners engaging. So I think that helped to kind of justify the work that we were doing and some of the things that we've come up with and have now floated to the community to continue to help us inform that vision. So again, I really just wanted to give a historical context of the work that's been done. We're going to continue our conversations. I try to make myself available. I've talked to community members recently who have heard of some of this work, and I've actually received a lot of positive feedback as we're calling this a potential innovation academy. The branding is in process, but I floated the idea of calling it El Molino Academy, and I haven't received any negative feedback. And matter of fact, I think people feel that would further honor our past traditions and history. So that's my presentation. The process, I'll just give you a summary of where we're at. The grant is due in February. I think I indicated that. Some of the framework of the grant has shifted in terms of the potential allocation. They're now drilling down and prioritizing communities that have a higher unduplicated student percentage. So they're looking to target somewhere in that 70% range, and our Laguna students, I think we're in like the high 60s in terms of unduplicated students. So we're going to put our best foot forward with the grant, but that's a secondary piece here. While the funding would be great and would continue to help align our processes with a state initiative and really national initiative, because I talked to a lot of superintendents about the specific community school work they do in other states, very similar. We believe that a new innovative program would continue to serve students and students that may not attend Annalee, and we don't want to lose our in-district resident students. So we'll be submitting that grant. We'll find out, I believe, late February, early March, and we're just going to continue our work to inform this vision. Any questions? Yes.
Can you give maybe 2, maybe 3 examples, very brief, of what a student at the new school, what they might be like and what their day or week might look like real world?
Yeah.
What does it look like and how is that different from what's going on at Annalee and Forestville right now?
Yeah, we've prototyped a few schedules based on the interest and the feedback that we've received. I think we see I think the difference from the traditional model is we're really going to integrate project-based learning, industry skills within the core. We do here at Annalee amazing things with the various programs. We have our CTE initiatives, right, which are industry-based, and we're really aligning those CTE programs with labor market indicators and student interests. So take English 9, for instance. We'll be integrating the core from math and science into those core classes and developing projects and giving our teachers a platform to be creative and to work with one another. So, and that would include active use of the makerspace that Dale is building. Students getting in and getting their hands on equipment and aligning the standards within that English class with maybe different industry ideas or skills that they might need to learn. Math, for instance, will have integration with computer science, engineering, for example. And then the possibilities are endless in terms of the creativity. So we imagine offering the core integrated project-based learning. So they're going to meet those standards, but they're going to be doing things that they might not do in a traditional model. We envision having no standalone electives. One elective course could be called the innovative arts. They would earn their elective credits. Teachers would have a common period for those elective periods, so our core teachers could work together to create projects, and those students would be earning elective credits, but it would allow them to go deeper into the content of the core math, science, social studies, and English. We envision opportunities for the students who live way out north, up by Fort Ross, that we potentially could offer a hybrid model, 3 days in person, 2 days virtually. Again, there's flexibility with how our teachers can deliver instruction, and we are going to be extremely selective about the types of teachers that we hire, and we're going to prioritizing hiring teachers with more than one credential. For instance, a posting could look like English plus CTE plus SPED plus some other authorization. We're going to be looking for those, dynamic teachers who see themselves thriving in that type of an integrated environment. We're going to have industry partnerships and internship opportunities. We envision having the CCAP dual enrollment courses offered on the campus. But that's the program. The community school model is a hub of educational programs. So your question, I think, pertains more to the new school, the innovative school that we've been talking about, Innovation Academy. But what we want on that campus is a robust support for multi-tiered systems of support, which we feel we've built around the partnerships with West County Health, the investment in a full-time MFT in our outreach therapist, the community supports from 10,000 Degrees, the community partnerships, the lease agreement with the library, the Parks and Rec, Dale Doherty and Maker Initiative. I've mentioned that we're working on a lease agreement with the SELPA to host some of their programmatical offices because they don't have space. It truly needs to be a campus that's a hub of resources, both from an educational program standpoint, but also from a partnership standpoint. The partnership with Dale, we believe, is going to provide tremendous opportunities for our students first and foremost. We're hoping that makerspace can start being available to the current Laguna students as soon as we're finished and we outfit, to the feeder students of our neighboring districts. I envision Forestville being able to bring up their 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to do some project-based learning, offering extended educational opportunities, so expanding beyond just the traditional high school credit recovery model that we offer, potentially enrichment offerings, maybe a different type of credit recovery, maybe a maker fair for the community, a robotics camp, AI courses. We obviously want to see the makerspace be a resource for community members to be able to come in, business owners, makers, woodworkers, to be able to utilize that facility. So the vision is much greater than just the development of a new educational program. It's really how we see that campus benefiting the greater West County community.
Okay, any other questions, comments about that? Dale? Awesome. That's great. Thank you. Okay, special education and student services update. Laura.
There we go. Hello, Jay, are you ready? There we go. I have not had a moment to say hello in the past few meetings, and I have several little details that I wanted to put together into one student support update. So I'm going to kind of whip through these slides. Jay, you want to go to the There we are. So as a reminder, and then go to the next thing, we do work from a model of tiered supports for students. And we look at supports in terms of social emotional support, academic support, organizational and behavioral support, with almost all of our supports available to all students. There's a belief that over the course of 4 years, every student probably needs some kind of support at some point. So we want to make sure that all those supports are available to the majority of students. And then we have processes in place to move students to higher levels of support. I want to be really clear that almost all of our supports are available at the Laguna campus and at Annalise campus. So next slide. So when we look specifically at the social emotional tiers, how are we doing, Jay? There we go. Thank you. Okay, that's where I want to be. Thank you very much. As far as our wellness center model, I think I personally see it every day, and I continue to be blown away at what has been built and is in practice on both campuses every single day, and how many students we serve. So the model itself has about 80% of our services available 8:30 to 3:40 Monday through Friday for all kids in a drop-in capacity. About 15% of our services are appointments or more crisis-based supports. And then there's 5% of our services that are long-term, maybe a semester long, maybe all 4 years long, but a level of service for students with more significant needs. So next slide. And how are we able to do that? We do that through partnerships. And I have highlighted 2 of our partnerships, sort of, if you could go back, yeah. So the basis of our partnership is West County Health and our school district. And then we have other partners that we have MOUs with. I have a highlight there, Sonoma Behavioral Health. We wrote the last sentence today. So perhaps next board meeting or the board meeting in January, you'll see on the consent calendar the MOU for Sonoma Behavioral Health. They have a new funding model where they are working in schools to serve students in need, mostly mental health crises. And it's just so nice that we don't need to call the police like we may have had to 5 years ago if there was a mental health emergency during the school day. We'll now have a person available, and even if they aren't available on campus, they'll be here in 20 minutes, and it works beautifully. So that's really a lovely partnership. And Keystone is the other that I've highlighted. Keystone is sort of fascinating to me. They're a nonprofit that works in schools. They bill Kaiser and Blue Cross and Blue Shield and all of those. So where West County Health primarily serves students with Medi-Cal, and that would be the appointment piece, Keystone will be able to serve more intense needs for other students. So Jay, if you want to go to the next one. This is a little bit hard to read, but how do we pay for all of this? If you look at the red is personnel. At any one time, we could have about 13 people in this district providing support within the social emotional support tier. And almost all of them, if you look at the green, are no cost to the district, because we basically have a partnership that says, hey, we'll provide you a place and a format, and our MOU outlines data sharing and release of information and all those sort of excellent safety things, but to provide the services right here is just wonderful. So I wanted to point out that the center, the biggest, which is our own wellness center, which is Sheila, the licensed clinical social worker, we are the state of California has created new funding models for schools to bill directly for some services for students who have Medi-Cal, because they recognize that our medical systems in the state have too much need. So if schools in fact are doing, for example, individual counseling, schools should be able to bill, at least partial billing, for some of those therapeutic services. So it's the problem is, of course, it pays in arrears. So we've used grant money basically to put Sheila in place. And we this year are expanding our Medi-Cal billing so that we will have funding to pay for Sheila in the future. And that should be ongoing. There's a whole new initiative with wellness coaches, which is it's a sort of community support person. Sheila's also a wellness coach. Anyway, the West County Health, for example, can bill more if they're on a school campus than they can bill if they're down the street in their clinic. So there are incentives for them to work with our students in our school. And then with the addition of Keystone, we will actually be able to serve all kids. Now, we certainly have two MFTs at Annalee and one Chris, licensed clinical social worker at Laguna. Those are our own district employees, just like Sheila is. Those are, they primarily serve students with IEPs. We will never not have those core people, but our whole system of support is built on these new partnerships and funding, and I find it very, very exciting and great that students no longer have to miss school to go to appointments, and they are here. So it's very good. Okay, last little bit. Next, yeah, thank you, Jay. So the CSACE, which I talk about every year, which is our required through special ed, our requirement to support students in the general ed environment to keep them out of requiring special ed services. We just had our plan approved yesterday by the state of California. We've added every year we add the ninth graders into the plan. We've added additional proactive parent outreach and intervention. We monitor DFs and attendance and match them with interventions for all struggling kids. So it's all our interventions are very data driven. And then we have, we're building capacity with our Spanish speaking families to have more say in IEPs. And then as far as community schools, this is community schools. These partnerships are what community schools are about. So we are mostly there, and grant or no grant, we're building a community school, and we're building a community school in Forestville to support that community. It's fabulous. And then I also want to say this is all aligned with WASC. So I feel like it's all aligned, right? These are not separate initiatives. This is the whole vision all coming together. That's it. Thank you. I have the next agenda item too, but I promise it's short.
That was really awesome. Thank you. I mean, it's amazing to see how broad and deep we're going it's not just teaching English and science and math. It's all this innovation on the education front and all this innovation around wellness. It's fabulous. Thank you. Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you, Laura, for the report, number one, and number two, thank you for what you do and your involvement, how deep you have gotten into this. And I really appreciate that because we've never had that before. And it shows how much you care about kids. And I just love it. And, being proactive with these parents, with our kids with D's and F's, I mean, it's phenomenal because I think a lot of times those parents and even those kids have always felt like they don't matter and it doesn't matter. And, and to know that there's somebody going to reach out and going to try to help steer them back on track is great. And maybe find out why this is happening. And is there some maybe mental health issues that are going on, or is that causing some mental health issues? And the fact that we have all of this mental health support right here on this campus and at Forestville is phenomenal because it's not something that we've had. And it speaks a lot to what we are doing with regards to this community school. Like you said, whether or not we get this grant or not, we're moving in that direction, and I really appreciate it.
One example of what you're talking about, Jeannie, and I've noticed this, and I commented this to Laura, but we have all these wonderful services, and it's easy when people are being onboarded to come in and just sort of tell them about all the services. Laura literally will take students and families and do walking tours and take them to meet the individuals and see on campus where all these services are located, which is going that extra mile that I think you're alluding to. So thank you for that, Laura.
Yeah, to add to that, I also want to recognize Laura's efforts to go out and work with our feeder districts. We draw from 10 different school districts in terms of our resident students. And one of the challenges we see with regard to special education is a lack of articulation in how students are supported before they come here. And Laura has put forth the effort to work with the employees, the staff of those schools as well, to ensure that they're aware of our processes and our support mechanisms, and hopefully reduce the number of students who need to have an IEP to reach their goals. So hats off, Laura, for the work that you do.
It's really very exciting and rewarding. I mean, it's where we were 4 years ago compared to where we are now. I don't want to take a lot of credit. COVID money was very helpful in allowing us to launch, and the support of the board and everybody else. We weren't constrained like some of the huge districts with, let's talk about it for 50,000 hours. It was, oh, you have this grant money? Sure, let's give it a try. And West County Health came and it all came together, and now we are truly a leader. I'm thrilled to say I was asked today, could other schools come and see what we've built? And we can all be really proud of supporting that. I mean, Greg and Chuck do so much work at the teacher staff level to make sure these programs are integrated, right? And it's not easy. When you put new systems in place, it hasn't always been pretty, but we are at a really good place of processes and services for kids. So I'm thrilled.
Awesome.
Okay, next topic. This is the short one. So legally.
Laura, just for process, let Lewis launch that, please. Thank you.
And number 3 is the alternate diploma.
Okay, so state of California has said that every high school will offer an alternative diploma. It is for a very, very limited number of students with IEPs and also who are intellectually disabled and can take the California alternative assessment. So this alternative diploma, although required, we have 0 kids who actually qualify for it. That said, the thought is over time, the certificate of completion diploma may evolve more into an alternative diploma. and more kids will apply, perhaps qualify to get this diploma. So we took a look at the requirement, and I just wanted to say over the spring semester, we're actually really close to being able to, if a student came tomorrow that wanted that, we're actually really close to being able to provide that. So we have, I think, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 classes that we're going to rename. So for example, a student in Mr. Alcorn's class might take Physics for Life, and that might be Safety with Electricity. But the title of the course would be Physics for Life because it would align with California state minimum standards for graduation. So we're going to change the title of 8 courses, but they will fundamentally be the same. Our only issue was the biology and life science that we don't have at the certificate of completion level. So we are going to change our off-campus work program to serve the 11th and 12th grade students, and then allow a certificate of completion kids at this point to take a biology and a physical science, and that's good for kids. So we'll be creating those 2 new courses. Are there any questions?
That's a discussion.
That's just
item.
discussion. I don't,
No need
Chris, you
to-
can correct me, but my belief is we do not need board approval to create new courses or
You will need to do new course requests. I can help guide you through that process.
for those 2, and then the name changes will, I don't think we go to the board with name changes,
If
correct?
we would, yeah, we would need
Oh,
to
we
do,
do.
yeah. But you and I could talk offline about that. So with any of the course title changes, even if there's not much changed in terms of the content, then we will bring those before the board. And we have a number that Chuck's working on, and I know I'll be connecting with Greg. And that's part of the evolution of educational program, and we'll make sure to do that appropriately with the right documents and board action, okay?
We're thinking that this could easily be in place for next school year.
Awesome. Thank you. Next item is consideration of approval of proposed new text in Spanish. Is that Chris or Lily?
That's me, but I'm gonna definitely invite Lily to have an opportunity to talk if she'd like. No? Okay. So second read here. We've obviously demonstrated our intent to ensure that we provide the most relevant, updated curriculum for all program, and we got new curriculum for the other Spanish course offerings. I believe that was last year, or the year prior, 2 years ago. So my first year. I think this just demonstrates our commitment, as you see AP Spanish 3, to, our high achieving students and making sure that our teachers and students have the most up-to-date curriculum. And just want to take that opportunity, since this has come up today. The board, my stance on this. We will always prioritize all programs at this comprehensive high school to ensure that all students that attend have opportunities to meet and achieve their goals, including those that want to go to elite colleges. I think that the evolution of educational program is obviously a reflection of our evolving student demographics. So I'm really proud that we've been able to, in a fiscally responsible manner, budget for curriculum revisions and updates over the last 3 years. So second read, board, and then we can get this curriculum ordered for our world language department.
So we went a little backwards. We probably should have done a motion and a second and then a discussion, but that's okay. Would anyone like to make a motion that we approve this text?
I move that we approve the proposed new text for Spanish.
Second? A second? Discussion has been had. All those in favor?
Any public comment?
Public comment? Lily, you good with this? Okay, approved.
Aye.
Aye. Yay. Okay, business services, consideration of approval of the 24-25 first interim budget. Would anyone like to make a motion that we approve the first interim? I'll second.
All right, thank you. So in our annual cycle here of financial reporting, we have our first interim budget. And the good news is we are looking good for the moment. So, oh, next slide. It's like the. It's this thing that's on the back of the card. That's just the thing. All right, thank you. All right, so as we look at the first interim budget, again, it's a snapshot in time of what reflects the financials from ending October 31st, and then everything from November through June is estimated. As we look, the board needs to take action to whether or not the certification for the first interim budget will be positive, qualified, or negative. And we're happy to report that we do have a positive, recommending a positive certification, as we will be able to meet our financial obligations in the current and 2 subsequent years. And then the next slide, Jay. So as we look at the budget, we look at the general adjustments to the first interim, where we're adding the addition, the carryover from prior years that could not be booked at budget due to government accounting standards. And then we're looking at salaries and expenditures to salary expenditures to actuals versus projections, where now all of our positions have been filled and there's no longer vacancies with those estimations in there. And then adjustments to other accounts that reflect projections through the end of the year. Next slide. As we know, and we talk about enrollment, and ADA drives the majority of our budget through the local control funding formula. The 24-25 year has been projected based off of the census day data from the 1st October and Wednesday. 23-24 has been adjusted to what those actuals are. And we see for 25, 26, 26, 27, we still kind of remain flat throughout there. The 25, 26, 26, 27 have been estimated based off of the January 24 demographic study, with the adjustment for the consortium enrollment down about almost 15 students. So that's what that reflection is in there, that lower number for the consortium, as we do collect the average daily attendance and report that enrollment for our consortium students. You see our current ADA and then what we are funded off of. Current year, we're being funded off of the 3-year rolling average. 25, 26, we're going to be funded off of, estimated to be funded off of the prior year. And but that's supposed to be 3-year average for 26, 27. Have to update that. Next slide. And as we look at the local control funding formula and put the information into the calculator, with the assumptions of the 1.07 COLA for this year, estimated ADA, you see where our revenue comes in at 20 million. That's about a 4% reduction from prior year. But being that we're funded off of that 3-year rolling average and still having a 1 year of a higher pandemic hold harmless ADA in the 3-year rolling average, we're coming to that physical cliff this year. So we hit that physical cliff, and then we stable out to where we're looking at real live ADA funding. And so that's where we see that increase over year, with a little bit. It's a 2.93 COLA projection right now. Legislative Analyst Office has said they're estimating about 2.4. So it's going to come in somewhere. We'll see what January brings with the governor's budget proposal, and then may revise what we end up actually having to build a budget off of. And then again, but I want to say we have that 2.93 right now estimated, with what the new revenue is, it's only about 2%. So we're not actually realizing the actual COLA that's projected. We're only realizing less than almost 1%, almost less for both those out years. So next slide. As we look at the revenues as they come in, we see how that's adjusted within the LCFF revenue over the years. This revenue actually shows the property tax pass-through from SELPA. So that's why the LCFF on this slide is higher than our LCFF calculator. And then we just see the revenue at 31, almost 32 million over the next few years there. Next slide. Expenditures. As we look at expenditures, the salaries have been adjusted in current year and then estimated out for the 2 subsequent years with a step and column adjustments, some reductions that have been built in within this multi-year projection. And as we look at the further expenditures, those have been increased accordingly with the 3% cost of living, which not cost of living, but inflation. And we know that, that's kind of been about the average of what's happening. So some things have been higher, some lower. So we just kind of put the 3% in there. For current year, the services and other section, we've taken, in the adjustment of the budget, we have looked at the salaries and the salaries where there was some unencumbered balances. We took those already approved budget balances and put those unencumbered balances into services to be allocated. So that's where and that sits in the services. And then we do have some additional unencumbered balances within utilities as we look at what the new HVAC system at Annalee, we don't know what that's going to look like. We're tracking it and seeing how it's trending over the past few years. So we do have some balances that are sitting in services. And so that's where we see that increase a little higher. We did receive a CalShape funding grant. It's an offset for our HVAC system work, about $304,000. So, that's what I should have said in the state revenue. So that's coming into the general fund into state revenue. But then those expenditures are sitting there in the capital outlay. So that's where you see the $394,000 there. We had bought some additional equipment that cost over $10,000 additionally besides the HVAC CalShape grant. So you can see the total expenditures from last year over this year, and then how they project out. We will look at, and we go into second interim, where are those additional savings so that we can make sure that the budget doesn't have balances at the end of the year that really drop to the end of the line, and then we have this huge fund balance grow at the end of that. So we'll be monitoring that here as we're getting closer and closer each month to the end of the year already. Next slide. Again, we have the $65,000 transfers in from Fund 40 that help to support the 3% set aside that we need to put into routine restricted maintenance account. And that's 3% of the general fund expenditures. Next slide. And then these are our assumptions. We're looking at the cost of living adjustments that are projected for right now, step and column for each classified and certificated. Again, the statutory benefits for healthcare, 5%, although that is the average of 5%. Some plans are coming in at 8% higher, but depending on where everybody is, it kind of averages out to that. CalPERS continues at 19.1. CalSTRS 19.1 CalPERS, we do see those increases happening each year. And they will be adjusted again as they go through their actuarial. We talked about books and supplies adjustments and looking at 3%. And then services and operations, about the utilities where we have those unencumbered balances right now, just to have, we don't know what that's going to be again, and then the additional to be allocated. Staff, next slide. And then our staffing assumptions, currently we have a total of 185.11 FTE in the district. Certificated is up from budget 0.4, and classified is up 1.5 from budget. We do have reductions built in right now at 8 for certificated, 3 for classified, and 1 for classified administration. These will be things we'll need to talk about, looking at new revenues, looking at, to hopefully not have this either, things happen through attrition or what needs to meet this goal, because this is built into, if we look at the MYP, we still are in a deficit spend situation over the next few years. And so we'll need to address that as we continue to move forward. The next slide is, we're looking at the beginning balances for the year. We started with almost 14 million, and then we have our income and outgo. So we have a deficit currently of spending one-time funds down, plus our unrestricted funding not being enough to cover what our current year expenses are. So we're eating away, eroding the ending fund balance. So we'll need to address that through either new revenue sources or further reductions that need to be identified. We still have an unappropriated amount throughout the years. Down at the bottom, you see the numbers of 6 million to almost down to 3 over the next budget cycles that we have here. Next slide. This is just the components of the ending fund balance that are there. Setting aside money for just the restricted reserves that are there based on the restricted programs. Setting aside funds for textbooks purchases and special ed. Just setting that aside for the possibility, if needed, that we know that those funds have been assigned. Next slide, and then we have cash flow. We still have enough cash on hand to meet our current year obligations, just another fiscal solvency look at the district, ensuring that we have enough cash. Next slide. So we'll continue our budget cycle here as we look at the budget revisions brought to the board monthly. The January governor's budget will come out on January 10th, and then we'll be attending the school services budget workshop in January to see what the governor proposes. We'll also have our audit for last year reported in January, and then again through our second interim report in March. And then we just keep the budget cycle going, and final governors may revise as budget that will set next year's budget for the school year, and we'll have our budget adoption in LCAP. So next. Oops. So as just again, the thoughts that, I always continue to bring up, our labor partner negotiations that we will be having and how those will impact the budget in the future years. And then addressing some of the economic uncertainties. We don't know what's going to happen with our reserves, trying to make sure that those are healthy and we maintain positive certifications throughout our cycle. Structural deficit, that is a concern as we continue to have expenses that exceed our revenue at this time. Increases to statutory benefits, utilities, goods and services, what we're dealing with all over. And the state budget, how that's going to come up with, and then how we can really control the special education costs, as that's a large contribution, a much needed contribution, but one that is very large. So with that, recommendation of a positive certification for first interim.
Any questions or discussion?
So how has the Sebastopol raising their rates of water and sewage affected us? Has that drastically, that's part of that increase in
Yeah,
that?
that we did budget about 40% higher, and it has come in at about 40% higher. So it's right now it's the more so of the electric and gas, and how that is going to change.
Well, yeah, and PG&E just keeps.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Did you guys know that California is one of only 7 states that counts attendance in its funding formula? It's out of the ordinary. CTA is starting to push toward encouraging our state to change that law, and I would love for us to work together. If we had some sort of mutual resolution that we drafted together and the association and the board members went in on that together, if we started a petition that could circulate beyond our district borders, something where, because I think it's hurting us. And I was hoping, Andrew, that you could speak to how our attendance rate factors into the money that we receive from the state, our enrollment money versus our ADA or our attendance average. How does that impact us?
And Lily, I wanted to say that, yes, in fact, CSBA is looking at that as well, and it's something that they're trying to address with the legislature as well. And there is a study going on right currently in the legislature with regards to this. I don't know where that sits right now, but I know that the legislature is studying it to see if in fact it's something that could benefit our state. And I wholeheartedly agree with you. I think it's high time that we get back to enrollment instead of butts in seats.
I mean, all of our funding is based off of ADA. So the only way we're going to get additional revenue is if we remain about 91% of students attending. We either increase that percentage, or we grow, get new students in, and remain at 91%, but we have more students now feeding the pot. But so it's really, what can we do? And I know they're working on attendance and really focused on that strategy this year is ensuring that students are in school, because that's what's best. But we need to increase how many students are actually coming to school.
Andrew, can you, just for clarity, talk a little about how COLA is impacted and whether districts realize full COLA?
Yeah, so if they're going to fund the reimbursement, if you will, that will increase. And so as that increases, but if we don't get that, the only way you're going to get 100% of that COLA is that 100% of your students show up. So that's where we see that the funding formula, as we look over the year, we lost 4% this year. COLA is 2.93 next year, but we're only realizing 2% because we don't have 100% of attendance.
And I think, board, you've heard me talk about, the exploration of ongoing sources of revenue. And I think that, is demonstrated in the efforts that, we've done to really examine attendance and look at ensuring that we have a program that meet the needs of all students and that we don't lose students. The potential for increased enrollment and the model that we've been talking about regarding the Innovation Academy, could dramatically support the district's ongoing revenues because of the way that we plan to staff that program and deliver that instruction in a non-comprehensive way. The board was tasked in making a really, really tough decision regarding the closure of El Molino. But the fact of the matter is that the enrollments didn't necessarily support 2 comprehensive high schools. So that being said, we've also looked at our independent study model. And, I presented to you and how and why we rebranded our independent study model to West County iAcademy and created an opportunity to serve up to 90 students with 1 FTE. If we were to have 90 students in those seats, and even at 90% attendance, the cost of that teacher where they sit on the salary schedule is about $180,000 with salary and benefits, as we also know as drivens. The district could realize revenues at 90% attendance with 90 students enrolled of about $600,000. So just know our team, we're always looking at opportunities to increase ongoing revenues through fiscally responsible decisions. And I think that comes with the development of programs and looking at things a little bit differently. I want to credit our administrative team at both Annalee and Laguna for the work that they've done to increase attendance. I know that it's been a project for one of our vice principals. There's been a lot of work that's gone into that. And over at Laguna, the purchase of a Laguna vehicle, our principals picking kids up every day and making sure that they're at school. So I really appreciate your suggestion and offer, Lily, to come together as a district with our labor partners to put some pressure on the legislation. Or the legislators rather, and it was very eye-opening for me to sit around the table with superintendents from many different states and hear about their funding formulas, their labor relations, or lack thereof. I mean, there's some states that don't have unions and have a funding mechanism and a per pupil revenue that hasn't changed since 2019. So we know that system has challenges, but we have to do the best we can within the parameters we're given. But we're always looking at opportunities to create ongoing revenues. And I think our best path to that is increasing enrollments through continuing to build up the current programs and being a model amongst Sonoma County schools. And look, I just want to point out our enrollment at Annalee High School. It's a 3rd Russian River, it's a 3rd Sebastopol, and it's a 3rd interdistrict. And with that evolution of program, that's to make sure that we're serving the kids from all different walks of life. Board, could you imagine what it looked like if we didn't have that 33% enrollment and the impact that would have on staff and program? And I think that this is important. I'm really glad we have students in attendance. Please, I encourage you to attend these meetings so you really know what's happening here. But we pay attention to those things, as you know, and I feel as though we have a team that, prioritizes fiscal responsibility, and we've done some good work to be in as decent shape as possible, especially given the amount of money that our past raises cost the district. But we have plans to ensure that we can reduce impact on teachers through, as Andrew stated, attrition. We have opportunities to potentially, shift funding sources. That's something that we're really good at. We're going to have to start talking about going out for parcel tax again in the near future. And so it's always on our minds. We analyze position control, multiple times a year and look at those funding sources to ensure we're maximizing all revenues. And then I also wanted to point out that, and I know Andrew, he didn't say this tonight, but he says it in almost every budget report, that 3% reserve, that wouldn't cover a month of payroll. So that's something we need to continue talking about. And for clarity, the 200 that we put aside for textbooks, that's for mandated textbook adoptions. That's not that we can afford to spend that every year unless we're mandated to shift curriculum. However, it has given us the opportunity to continue to upgrade and purchase, the best curriculum for our students. And then we are also at a disadvantage regarding our special education costs. Because of a lack of articulation, because we don't have our own feeder districts, and it's just an unknown in terms of the students that might move into our district, and we do a really good job of ensuring that We're mindful with the resolution that we pass regarding interdistricts coming in, but I believe our special education costs are exceeding 2 million. So we have to continue 5. Okay, yeah, with the without the
Yeah.
reimbursement,
The
sure.
contribution above and beyond, yeah, we're about 4 million.
So, you know, just a few things, food for thought, but
Lewis, I'm going to call on Lewis. Um, you know, we've built these amazing programs and we're continuing to. I mean, it's amazing what we're hearing is going on, and we don't want to have to shrink that. It would be torture to do that. And we're also bleeding away the fund balance. It's a real thing. Like in the next 3 years, we're going to be right up against it. I would really wonder whether we can do a better job of addressing recruitment. I think we could have, I mean, coming from business, it's like a sales plan. I mean, I think we could, a group of us could get together, and I know you're already working on this, but we could really make it more clear that in February, we go out to all the feeder schools with the band and the dance troupe. And in March, we go out with AP classes. And in June, we go out, we invite all the parents here. I think we could have a more structured plan around that, and we could execute on it, and we could make it happen. It's the low-hanging fruit. If we have 33% enrollment coming in, what if that was 45%? It would make such a huge difference. And people, not just transfers in, there's a lot of kids from our feeder schools. What did you say, 60% of some of our feeder schools don't come here? Let's address that. I think we can. We really do have increasingly great programs and great teachers and great education. And let's make sure the word's out there.
I'd love to just tip the cap to our administrators for the plans that they have in place. We had what I called a recruiting task force meeting on Friday. And I mean, I was blown away by the plans that have been created at Annalee. I know that Greg has done some really good things to, you know, welcome families, and obviously, you know, the Laguna enrollments are going to be a result of continued recruitment enrollments at Annalee when those students do fall behind. But if you're interested, I think you'd be really impressed with the plan that we have structured in place. Chuck, can you speak to that a little bit?
So I think one of the things that might be most impactful that's different from last year, counselors will be visiting each of our feeder middle schools, spending time there. This is something that we learned last year is really their preference. We had put on a little bit of a show at Annalee, and it was fun to have the middle schoolers on campus, but it didn't really realize increased enrollment for us. We think we have a better shot if we visit the middle school, so that's what we're going to try this year. In addition to that, as I think you'll remember, the larger Strong Workforce grant that we wrote was explicitly targeted toward outreach to our lower socioeconomic status community members, and we have a series of events designed to take our show on the road, so to speak, and to ensure that community members, families, and students, prospective students, understand the range of offerings we have at the comprehensive high school, and sort of what that can do for them, and make sure that they understand, you know, where they go from there. So those are two of the things that I think are new. We have an additional family engagement facilitator that we're leaning on pretty heavily to help do some of that planning and work. I think that's going to help a lot. So students that maybe we hadn't been able to capture before, we hope to this year.
So we plan to circle back with that team. And Lewis, I'd love to invite you to engage. It'd be great to have a trustee, because you did point out a lot of things that we've discussed, but you also pointed out a few things that we hadn't. So we're always looking at it.
Let me know.
Of course. I think you have a public comment on this item. Yeah.
On
So-
this item, it's on the WSCTA MOU.
2 though.
And we have another one on B1. Sorry. Budget. Okay, yes, we do. So did Jonah? you wanted to address regarding this item, interim budget.
Hello? Okay. I saw that in the new budget proposal that consulting services would roughly double to nearly $70,000. Yeah. I saw that consulting services would nearly double to $70,000, or I'm not 70, excuse me, $700,000. Is this a necessary expense, seeing as how our revenue is going down? And could you explain how that's necessary and what the thought you're putting into it?
Jonah, just as a reminder, it's public comment. So we're,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So no questions.
you can make a comment, but yeah, that's
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you want to clarify that number? Is that accurate for you?
Yeah, that's where we're talking about the expenditures within the services where that has increased. We took the unencumbered approved budget, and if there were funds that didn't need to remain in that, were moved from the other salary lines, benefit lines, supply lines, if you will. Nothing, I don't think it was a change move for supplies, but mainly salaries and benefits. Those approved budget amounts were moved down into the 5,000 to be allocated. 5,000 meaning services slash contracts. That services slash contracts are where your utilities are paid. It's not necessarily we contracted a person to come in, unless it was for repairs, maintenance, and repairs on routine restricted maintenance repairs that were happening. So that's kind of where that money came in. The Cal shape was in the 6,000 other. So that's. And then if you have further questions, Jonah, you know where to find me.
Yeah, Jonah, can I recommend that you contact Andrew and set up a meeting and let him explain it to you, because it comes across very confusing
Yeah.
because it's this large amount and it's a very cryptic title. So, and I think he can help you answer.
Jonah and I met a few weeks ago and went over this like extensively, and yeah, so he's doing a real good job about budget
Good.
watching. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Okay. Sorry, where are we? Interim budget. Human resources.
Oh, you got to take a vote on this one. Yeah. You have a motion and a second.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the first interim budget? Aye. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're moving on to item C, public hearing on district's initial proposal for contract negotiations with California School Employees Association.
And see if there's anybody that wants to make a comment about it.
Note the time.
Make a comment and hearing.
Public hearing is now open. Does anyone have anything they wish to comment about
7:44.
at 7:45? Public hearing is closed. Right? Okay, good. So that's it for that item.
And then you go right to 2.
Okay. Consideration of approval of district's initial proposal for contract negotiations with California School Employees Association, CSEA.
All right, it's my item. So this is what is commonly referred to as sunshining. So this is, make a motion.
Can I
Sorry.
get a motion, please, for approving the initial proposal for contract negotiations?
So moved.
Second from anyone? Second, Sean, thank you. Okay. Dan, please.
So for the first item, we'll share the district's what we call openers. And per Article 24 of the CSEA bargaining agreement, we have Article 4 wages is automatically opened, and then we can open each, the district and the bargaining unit can open up 2 additional articles. So we are proposing, or we are asking the board to approve opening Article 6 around hours. Specifically, district is interested in cleaning up overtime pay and compensatory time off, often referred to as comp time, some of the language around that, as well as Article 9, leave of absence. District is interested in cleaning up the catastrophic leave language. We have two different sets of catastrophic leave between WSCTA and CSEA, and we want to look at that with CSEA. So those are what we are proposing as our openers with CSEA for this year.
Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Consideration of acceptance of openers from California Employees Association, CSE, initial proposal for contract negotiations with district.
And this doesn't require motion. It's just
Correct. So as I mentioned, the district proposes its openers, and then the bargaining unit, CSCA in this case, proposes theirs. They are proposing, of course, Article 4 wages, and their additional two are Article 7 holidays and Article 15 safety conditions of employment. Specifically around holidays, they are asking to take a look at Indigenous Peoples Day as a recognized holiday under safety conditions of employment. They want to clarify safety issues, reporting, and a compliance process, and contemplate campus safety incidents. And under wages specifically, they did call out beyond salary increase improvements to bilingual pay, and then ongoing participation in the summer assistance program.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Number 4 is the WSCTA MOU.
Okay, this is mine as well. So this is a MOU between, excuse me, let me open this one up. Oh yeah, you guys need to make a motion on this. Yeah.
Can we have a motion, please? I'm sorry.
so moved.
Second. Sean, thank you. Okay, sorry, Dan.
Okay, no problem. So we are currently in the process of looking to fill a teaching vacancy related to the resignation that I announced earlier in the personnel report. This particular teaching vacancy does require multiple teaching credentials and certifications. We have met with WSCTA leadership to discuss ways of filling that vacancy. We talked about making a good faith effort to go out and try to find an individual mid-year to be able to step in and fill the specifics of this teaching vacancy. Both the district and WSCTA agree that if we're not able to find an individual to do so, that we would then be able to contract with an online provider or providers to address the vacancy for the remainder of this year. And so we did post position on EdJoin in that process, but we're asking for the district, or excuse me, the board's approval of this MOU to contract out to an online provider if we're not able to find a qualified teacher.
And I do want to preface that qualified teacher to deliver the content appropriately with that credential. Either way, we're going to be hiring a teacher of record and the most qualified teacher that we can recruit. So I do want to just preface that.
Correct. The uniqueness of this is around needing both an English credential and a social studies credential, given the nature of the courses in question. And then there's also a specific certification around 2 of the courses which make up the AP capstone piece.
Further discussion from the board?
And you do have a public comment on this.
Yep. August?
Good evening. My name is August. There we go. Is that better? Good evening. My name is August Lincoln. I'm a student here at Annaley High School. This morning, I sent an email to all board members and the administration here at Annaley High School regarding the absence of a teacher, which is what this is about, in my AP language class. I'll encourage any of you who haven't read it yet to read it. I think I provide some interesting insights into this whole thing from the student perspective, and I hope that you all can learn, just see a little more about what this is like from students, even if that doesn't change your opinions. The board published an MOU between them and the Teachers Union, explaining their intention to hire an outside online contractor if a teacher's not hired during their good faith hiring period. This period, as far as I'm concerned, has lasted only about a week. And I have some fears regarding hiring an online contractor. Whether or not those fears come to fruition, we will see. My fear is that we tried online learning during COVID. We tried doing things online. It didn't work. Students missed a lot of material during that period, and we've seen some really big deficits in student learning and like ability to pass tests. So I also fear the precedent this sets for teachers, which is that when it becomes inconvenient or in some cases not possible to hire and fill an open teaching position, hiring outside contractors is now an option, which, as far as I'm concerned, feels like it invalidates the teachers that we have here at Handley High School. I'm worried that students who sit in these classes won't be able to fulfill the requirements needed to pass the AP test, which is a hard deadline in May. And quite frankly, I'm worried about myself. For the last 2 months, I've been in this situation. And I understand this is a personnel issue, so none of that can be discussed with students. And I know it's hard from the board and administration perspective to find teachers mid-year. I understand that's a challenge. And it's harder for me and my peers to sit in a classroom and not have a teacher. We are all suffering from this. But having classes taught through a screen without an actual teacher record in the classroom won't benefit students. It'll make school harder and it will make school more confusing. I don't know if you guys have found a teacher. I guess I won't know. I hope you have. I hope you do. If you have, thank you. Really appreciate that. But I hope you consider hiring an online contractor to be a absolute last resort measure and to ensure that my peers and I have the quality education we deserve. Students, the administration, and the board all have the same goals. We often forget it, but we do. Students want to be taught and receive a quality education. The administration and board want to teach us to help improve test scores and to encourage post-secondary success. I hope that together we can work to create a school and a district that respects the needs of teachers and students alike and helps students receive the quality education they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate your waiting around through an insanely long meeting to make your statement. We really appreciate that. And I would say, speaking for myself, we don't disagree with you. We're really working on this. So thank you for your comments.
Louis, before you vote, I want to make one thing clear too in the MOU that I didn't say as I was. One of the clear agreements that we have between the district and WSCTA is this is non-precedent setting. We do not intend to make hiring online instructors our way of educating when this is a unique situation, and that's the reason for this particular MOU.
And again, there will be a teacher of record regardless of what happens.
That's what I wanted to clarify. Could you, because so these students, if this worst case scenario happens and someone isn't hired with the credentials, there will still be a teacher in the room. They just won't have all of those required credentials. And that teacher will be using this platform and the students will be learning from the platform, but it's not like they're just going to a room and it's like pandemic and they're in front of a computer. There's a teacher there talking
That is
to them.
correct. There'll be a teacher, the most highly qualified teacher that we can recruit. If we're unable to recruit a teacher that has the credentials, the 2 credentials, the English, the social studies, and the capstone, what is it called over the summer?
Oh, the Summer Institute.
Thank you. And then the program that we've vetted for capstone research, there will be a lot of synchronous with teachers on the other end. It's not just simply independent learning, and the other courses will have that option, but not as often as the capstone research courses with the companies that are vetted and named in the MOU, specifically QSI. So we're going to do the best that we can to ensure that the students have the educational opportunity to complete these courses and meet their post-secondary goals. But just for point of clarity, and yes, Debbie.
Any further discussion about the MOU? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay, consideration of approval. Sorry, my computer's jumping. Of approval of revisions to the health tech job description. Do we have a motion? And a second. Thank you, Sean. Dan, is it you?
Yep, yeah, this one here. So last spring, there was a request for a reclassification study for the health technician position, a classified position in our district. A panel was convened last spring, and at that time, the recommendation was to revisit the job description as it was currently written and compare that to the work that the health technician is currently doing, and then bring that back forward for approval and accompanying placement on the classified salary schedule range. So that has taken place. We have worked closely with CSEA to draft a new health technician job description. You have two copies of that there, the final copy as well as the copy that highlights and has some strike throughs so you can see the changes from the previous description till now. CSEA has signed off on this, and you'll see there was a change in the range to range 29 on the salary schedule. And that is one thing to note, given that this process started last spring and things we've agreed that this is a retroactive change we'd be making. So should the board approve this change, the change in salary, excuse me, the change in the hourly wage would go back to the beginning of the year for the health technician.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, return to closed session if necessary, not necessary. Future board meeting dates, December 18th, a week from tonight, we meet again here in Annalee. And DEI committee is meeting on the 16th. Here upstairs in room 201, 20 something, 22. Without further ado, thank you, everyone. The meeting